tunnels, stairwells, and underground places weren't made to be inviting. They're cold. They echo. And sometimes, they hold on to things. These are 4 true stories from people who found themselves beneath the surface and discover that not everything down there is forgotten. Our first story comes from Marcus, who was just exploring an old maintenance tunnel near his university when he realized he wasn't the only one down there. Story 1, The Tunnel Behind the Gym, Marcus's account. My name is Marcus, and when I was in college, I used to jog at night around the campus. It was usually empty after 10 p.m., and I liked the quiet. One of the buildings I passed was the old gym, no longer used, lights off all the time, kind of forgotten. What I didn't know at the time was that there was a tunnel underneath it. I found it by accident. There was a side door behind the gym, almost hidden behind some dumpsters. One night, I stopped to tie my shoe, and I noticed the door was slightly open. I assumed it was a maintenance room. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a narrow stairwell that led down, damp, concrete, smelled like rust and mold. At the bottom was a tunnel. It wasn't huge, but wide enough to walk through comfortably. Pipes ran along one side, old and corroded. I walked in a little, just to look around. My phone flashlight lit about 10 feet ahead, but it was mostly darkness. No wind, no sound. Just the faint dripping of water echoing from somewhere deeper. I turned around to leave. And that's when I heard the footstep. Just one. Not mine. It came from deeper in the tunnel. I froze, trying to listen. Nothing. I told myself it was a pipe shifting, or water dropping from somewhere. I started walking faster toward the stairs, not running, but definitely not casually. Halfway there, I heard it again. This time closer. A single step. Deliberate. I turned my light back and shined it down the tunnel. There was nothing. Just a long, empty stretch of damp cement and rusted pipe. Until something moved. Very slightly. Something just outside of the light's reach. It didn't run. It didn't jump out. It just shifted. I backed up slowly. Then I heard a breath. It wasn't mine. That's when I ran. I took the stairs 2 at a time and slammed the door behind me. I went back the next day with a friend. We found the door, but this time it was chained shut from the inside. Like someone, or something, didn't want it opened again. I never found out what that tunnel was used for. No one at campus security had any records of it. But sometimes, when I jogged past that part of campus late at night, I swear I heard footsteps behind the walls. This next story is from Jenna. She and her cousin found a staircase hidden behind a boarded-up door at their grandmother's house. And what they found at the bottom was never meant to be seen. Story 2, The Hidden Stairwell, Jenna's account. When I was 12, my family visited my grandmother's house for the summer. It was the kind of house that creaked when you walked, with thick wallpaper, dusty furniture, and strange corners that never got any light. She'd lived there since the 1950s. One afternoon, while my cousin Sam and I were playing hide-and-seek, I found a small wooden panel in the hallway closet, behind the coats, where no one ever looked. It had hinges. I called Sam over, and together we pulled it open. Behind it was a narrow, steep staircase. Completely dark. We weren't supposed to go exploring without an adult, but we were kids, of course we did. The air got colder with every step. It didn't smell like a basement. It smelled like stone. Like a place sealed for a long, long time. At the bottom, there was a short hallway made of old bricks, red and crumbling. The walls were damp. There was a strange symbol carved into the floor, nothing we recognized, just shapes, circles, scratches. We laughed it off. Probably some weird decoration from the past. Then we heard it. A voice. But not coming from the hall. It came from behind us. Up the stairs. It was a man's voice, soft, like a whisper. "Who's down there?" We froze. Sam whispered, "That's not your dad, is it?" I shook my head. We backed up into the tunnel slowly, not knowing what to do. Then we heard the footsteps. Slow. Coming down the stairs. Steady. Heavy. There was no light, but we could hear every step echo off the stone. We ran. Not back up the stairs, but deeper down the tunnel. The hall curved, and suddenly we were in a small chamber. 4 walls. No windows. A collapsed door on the other side. Dead end. Sam turned around with the flashlight from his phone, pointing it toward the tunnel. There was no one there. But something was moving. The shadows were shifting, like something tall was swaying back and forth just out of sight. I don't know how long we stood there, staring into the dark. Then we heard the whisper again, right beside us. "Found you." We screamed and ran back up the stairs. When we burst out of the closet, our parents came running. We told them everything. My grandmother went pale when she saw the open panel. She slammed it shut and told my father to nail it shut from the outside. No one explained anything to us. But that night, I heard my dad talking to her in the kitchen. He asked, "Why didn't you tell them?" And she said something I'll never forget. "I thought it was gone." Our next story comes from Darren, who worked part-time cleaning out old buildings with his uncle. He thought the empty parking structure they were sent to inspect was just abandoned. Until he followed a stairwell that shouldn't have led anywhere. Story 3, Below Level 3, Darren's account. I was 19 when this happened. My uncle ran a small cleaning and maintenance business, and I'd help him during the summers. Most of the jobs were boring, clearing out old offices, sweeping out garages, that kind of thing. One afternoon, we were sent to clean a city-owned parking structure that had been out of use for years. It was supposed to be demolished soon, but they wanted it cleared of debris first. It was a concrete monster, gray, silent, 5 levels high and supposedly 3 levels deep. I started on the bottom, level -3. Dim lights flickered overhead, and water dripped steadily from the ceiling. My footsteps echoed louder than I expected. There was a stairwell in the far corner that led up and down. I assumed it just looped back to the upper levels, but curiosity got me. I went down a few steps. No lights. Just darkness below. I counted each landing, -4, -5, -6. No signs, no arrows, just more stairs. Eventually, the air changed. It felt thicker. My phone lost signal. That's when I should have turned back. But I didn't. I reached a floor with no label. The door had no handle, just a push plate. I hesitated, then pushed it open. It led to a hallway that didn't match the rest of the building. The walls were brick, not concrete. The floor was dirt. The air smelled like wet soil and old metal. There were sounds too, barely there. Breathing? Movement? I couldn't tell. At the end of the hall was a wooden bench. Sitting on it was a coat. Just a coat. But next to it was a small voice recorder. One of those cheap handheld ones. I pressed play. There was only static, and then a voice. "If you're hearing this, it's already too late." I dropped it. The sound echoed like a scream. I turned to run and saw movement in the tunnel. Not a person, just a shadow that crossed from one side to the other. But it was fast. And wrong. I sprinted back up the stairs, skipping 2 at a time, heart pounding. When I reached the surface, my uncle was calling my name, angry. I told him what happened. He didn't believe me. A week later, we went back, official demolition crew in tow. I asked one of them what was below level -3. He laughed and said, "There is no level -4. The stairwell ends at -3. We sealed the rest off years ago." I never said another word. But sometimes, when I drive by that part of the city at night, I swear I can feel something pulling me back, like something still remembers me. Our last story comes from someone who lived next to a long-forgotten storm drain tunnel. He always wondered where it led, until one night, he followed it too far. Story 4, The Drain Tunnel, Zach's account. My name is Zach, and when I was about 14, we lived on the edge of a small town surrounded by woods and creeks. Behind our house, past a line of overgrown trees, there was a large concrete storm drain tunnel, probably 6 feet in diameter, round, pitch black inside. Everyone called it the drain. Some kids had gone in a little ways, but no one ever talked about going far. At least, not seriously. One fall evening, just before dark, I decided to check it out. I brought a flashlight, my phone, and told my mom I was just walking near the woods. I climbed down the slope and stepped into the tunnel. At first, it wasn't that bad. The echo of my footsteps was weirdly loud, and the smell was musty, metallic. The further I walked, the colder it got. 10 minutes in, I found a small alcove carved into the side. It wasn't natural, someone had built it. There was an old metal gate bent open, and behind it, a short stairwell leading down. I hesitated. Something about it felt wrong. Like the air wasn't moving right. But I went down anyway. The stairs led to a second tunnel, this one square-shaped and lined with bricks. My flashlight flickered once. Just once. And then I heard something behind me. Not footsteps. Dragging. Like something pulling across the concrete, slow and steady. I turned around and shined the light, nothing. But the sound kept going for another few seconds, even though nothing was there. Then I saw the writing. On the brick wall, barely visible in the beam of my flashlight, were words scratched into the surface. He talks in the dark. I ran. I made it up the stairs, but the dragging sound got louder, faster, like something was angry I had left. I didn't stop running until I got back to the surface and sprinted all the way home. I never told anyone. About a month later, we had heavy rain, and the drain flooded. Debris poured out of it for days, branches, trash, and a boot. Just one. Moldy, old, waterlogged. But when I saw the soul, my stomach dropped. There was something carved into it. Just one word. Listen. Tunnels and stairwells are meant to take us somewhere. But sometimes, they lead to places no one remembers. Places that weren't meant to be found. Or worse, weren't meant to be left. If you've ever felt something watching you from below, you're not alone. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more true horror stories. And be careful where you go exploring.